this series will run concurrently with Applied Spirituality, Let's Be Real About Healing, and the Marvel comic one, which I haven't picked up again. And I think I'll call this one We're All Here Together. And this is space. Hey, Katrina. This is space just to have daily, to connect with yourself, to tune in, to ask questions, kind of like office hours. And that would be what I'm offering to you. And I'll also share whatever occurs to me, whatever comes in. Good morning. So that's what I'm offering to you. For me, it's just great to have kind of the energy moving, allowing myself to express what comes to me and have it go somewhere. So with that said, all my papers are blank. That means I'm here if anyone has anything specific that they want to talk to or troubleshoot. And otherwise, I'll just likely tell jokes or say whatever comes to me to say. So I did a little video. I think I could do it better, but I like the idea of teaching movement this morning. And I think that a physical practice for many people is really scary. You know, we have been taught or conditioned to think that the experts for our bodies are on the outside. They're the doctors, they're the Jillian Michaels, they're the CDC, like, you know, whoever does the food pyramid. They're the jillions and jillions of internet doctors who say you're not eating enough avocado, and if you want that ass to be fat, you need to do this, you know. So I think my messaging around the body is really the simplicity of having a relationship with it and the importance of that. So this is a closed system-ish within other systems. So let's talk a little bit about what a closed system is. So maybe it's helpful to know, like, where am I coming from in talking about this stuff? Who am I? In 2013, I pursued, good. Yeah, great. Okay, that's great. My personal training license, and then from 2013 to 2018, I worked one-to-one with people, and that's really how I got into behavior change and really climbing up the ladder of like, identity makes the biggest difference. But that, so I've worked with people at really great clubs in Miami, and have had that journey, an educational journey, a coaching journey, and then also my own personal journey with my body. And I just, if you're just joining, what I was talking about was how simple it is to have an awareness of your body, and how even though the way that it's presented makes it seem like, no, you couldn't possibly know what this needs. No, though, you do. And the first step, I think, in that journey is creating a desire, or allowing the desire to exist, that you want to have a relationship with your body, that you want to be able to work with it real time, take care of it, maybe new, or I don't want to say better, but we'll say more intentional ways. And what is the value of that? Well, it's everywhere you are, man. It's everywhere you are. And like I said in the presentation yesterday, I'm going to allow myself to simplify some of the frames of reference, and yet I'm going to acknowledge that the other ones exist, because I think that's helpful if you're sensitive in those ways. And I always want to be helping people be like, no, you're not crazy. And that means that we exist here in our physical bodies, and I'm pretty sure we exist other places. But for simplicity's sake, we're going to talk about you being here in your body here. Good morning. And so the simplicity of it, let's just kind of, here's your body. And I was talking about closed systems, and I said your body is a closed system. And what's cool about systems that are closed is that, like, they are, but they aren't, because they exist in other systems. So this is part of the world system, this is part of your family system, your neighborhood system, etc. And then within your closed system, you have like, your respiratory system kind of closed, its own thing. You have your digestive system, kind of its own thing, your muscle system, all of these things that are kind of like complete systems within themselves, and yet they exist in a larger one. And so your body is like that as well. It exists in a larger system. And I think that's important because the system that it exists in includes your physical environment. So that means the air around you, the people around you, it all affects each other. You can't isolate a piece of it, but you do need to have kind of an entry point to start to lead your experience. And with the body and the mind, they are very related, and they influence each other substantially. For example, while I was doing habit books with clients, many of them had places to mark their mood for the day, their mental clarity, etc., and then also note their alcohol and their food content. Wouldn't you know, they felt real depressed and awful following drinking. And when we're looking at behavior, especially with physical behavior and the body behavior, there can be a lag time between your choice and the effect that can make it challenging to tie those together. When you start to tie them together, it's easier to make choices that align with what you want because you see how they're related. So with that example, it was easier for those people to start to make different choices around alcohol because they saw that it was affecting like their enthusiasm for their life or their ability to perform at work, or the things that they really value. They saw like, okay, like that actually comes here. And so that comes back to this idea of a closed system. You can kind of isolate variables, although you won't be able to do it exactly because, like I said, it's contained in systems and systems. But the idea is really to start to become aware of your input and your output loops. So if you have sugar, how does that affect your mental clarity? For me, if I eat, my body's been increasingly clean. I've been... I don't even know the year scheme here, but my body is very clean. And if I eat some bullshit, which I don't generally do, but let's say let's see the last time that happened. I can't remember what it was it was root beer. I thought I hadn't had soda in years. And I was at Whole Foods and I was like, I'm going to get root beer. And I got a very clean root beer, but it did have sugar in it. My joints, oh my God, my joints. Like I could feel kind of like sand in my joints that made movement uncomfortable. And when it's not comfortable, you don't want to do it. And when you don't do it, you can kick off a loop in a direction of like, maybe tomorrow. And again, at an information level, it can be helpful to close those loops so that you can make a different decision. You don't know, really, the impact that it has when you have a lot of variables moving, but you can start to become aware. And it doesn't have to be a big process. It can just be very simply like relaxing into yourself. The here is where it's at. That should be the shirt I make. Here is where it's at. Because if you just take a few breaths, and you let your lungs soften and you let your belly soften and you really come into your body and relax into the chair that you're sitting in or however your body is, like give your weight over to the floor and come in here and let your lungs kind of blossom and let your nervous system relax, and we'll just kind of breathe a little bit. Get real cozy here. Maybe you pretend you're on a hammock or you feel really supported, not a care in the world, and we're just kind of coming into, here is where it's at, coming into the body. No matter what work you try to do for yourself, it's so that you come to this moment as yourself, in your intelligence, in your individuality, in your ability to express and go for what is uniquely yours. This is where it's at. This is where we're going right here. And the mind will create maze after maze after maze, path after path, telling you like, no, it's over there. And like, you get there. And they're like, no, it's over here. And you get there. No, and you'll just dart around, not really realizing you're not doing shit. You might be exposing yourself to different experiences, which is great, but that sensation of centeredness, that place of power, that place of peace that you are looking for, the mind is like Easter egg hiding from you. It's here. It's right here. Here is where it's at. And the body is a big part of that experience. Like I said, the mind and the body are very related. And I gave one example of how alcohol or sugar or things can influence how you actually perceive yourself and your life in a way that changes your whole experience. If you are feeling like in a depressed state, and that doesn't mean depressed, like clinically depressed, just say like a lower state, a state that is depressed from normal. You can think of it like a beach ball underwater. So your beach ball naturally goes up. You naturally rise. That's kind of just our orientation. And then our mind and some of the choices that we make physically depress or hold the ball underwater. And we're trying to like figure out how to make the water lighter. No, you just take your hands off it and it'll rise. And so that's really the removal of things and less the addition of things. So the removal of things that hold, removal of ideas. We are only ever returning you to your natural, beautiful state. How cool is that? So I do want these to be short-ish. So I covered a lot here, and I'm just, again, practicing. So if you're joining, this is a concurrent series called We're All Here Together, and it's really just kind of an informal chat where people are invited to bring what they have, what they want to talk about, and I'll otherwise just kind of say whatever comes to me. It's a blank paper series, which means I'm not showing up with stuff to teach. I'm just going to say what comes to me. Today I talked about the body, and that's because I did a little video, or maybe it's not because they're related though, to kind of remind you that this is where you are. And a lot of the comfort that we're looking for mentally is because we are uncomfortable physically. And it doesn't mean you have to be uncomfortably physically at a health level. It can just mean that you don't feel safe to be in your body. And I said that the mind will come up with all types of places where maybe you could or would, or states or this or that, or like stages of healing. That was the funniest one for me, where the stages of healing were like, okay, though, when you heal this, then you'll be good. The marker keeps moving. The marker is here. Here is where it's at, and here moves. We're forever changing and growing. It's an expanding universe, seemingly. And the place you're trying to find, the feelings you're trying to find, and covering all that ground, they're here. They're here. And again, it's not to say that you don't progress forward or don't have different experience, just you recognize and allow that the sensations of peace, power, relief, joy, like they're here. They're here. And here is where your body is. And so in the video today, I gave just some ideas on how to move it around, to connect with it. And then I started to talk about how we're trained to believe that to have a relationship, we can't be our own body experts. That's kind of how we're trained. We have the doctors, we have, the Jillian Michaels, we have the, internet doctors. We have all these people that tell us, what our body is, what our body needs. Each body is fucking unique. It's different. And it's different through time. What you need in a season of summer and high stress is different than what your body needs when you're chill or it's winter. Like, it moves. And the only way to really know what you need is to be here for it. Kind of relax into how are you feeling and looking for different impulses. We're kind of taught to be very still and sit down and not do weird stuff in public. But if you watch a child, the child kind of flails around and moves, if it wants to wiggle, it wiggles. It is not withheld, it doesn't deny itself its natural movement. And over time we suppress or depress that, and we're then suppressed and depressed, because that's, the body knows what it needs. So I also talked about closed loops, or closed systems rather, and how they're not really separate from other systems. They're nested and they all affect each other, and yet it can be helpful to start to call out systems so that you can manage variables. So you have like your respiratory system, you have your digestive system, and then I talked about how a system is also kind of like an input and output loop, where you have the input of, what you're eating. Good morning, guys. You have the input of what you're eating, and then you have the effect that it has on your body. And I talked about how sometimes that decision point, the input and the output, there's some space between them, and it can be challenging to associate this with this. And yet that really is the opportunity, so you can start to learn how to provide maintenance specific and unique to your body. And it's not really rocket science. Again, there is a simplicity, and I think that's my messaging here around the body. It's like, it's not that hard. You think that it's hard because you've been conditioned to think that it's hard, but really there is kind of an innate knowing here, and the practice is allowing that to be possible and being still enough and curious enough and open enough to kind of like play around and find what works for you and what feels right for you. There is, to me, right and wrong is not something that you derive from textbooks. Right and wrong, to me, is a sense of harmony. It's a sense of resonance, because it's very unique. What is right in a moment for somebody is different. And there are, of course, things that you would likely put always on like the wrong list, but in general, there is a relativity to being, and it's being okay with that, being able to know that there aren't hard and fast, always eat this much cereal, always, do this much. It moves. Life moves. And the feelings that we're looking for and kind of the dopamine hit systems that we set up for ourselves, whether that's Instagram, whether that's drama in your personal life, maybe that's achievement, whatever it is, like that is there's some level of aliveness that you get from that is present when you let life be alive. And so those feedback loops that are more addictive in nature and don't have a net positive effect, you can swap those out for, that feeling of like allowing life to be alive, which means, maybe what you do this Wednesday is different than next, you're allowed to let things move. And yet there is still sort of a rhythm to what is required for the maintenance of yourself in your home. For example, like, you vacuum so often, or you wipe things down so often, like there's a rhythm. Does it have to be every Tuesday? No. Does it have to be every so many days? Likely. Does it change based on the activity? Yes. So it's kind of like allowing yourself to start to tune into the rhythms of your own body, rather than try to like beat it into submission, some idea you have of how it could or should operate. I don't know if I breathed at all there. So let's breathe now, and then if anybody has any questions before we close. So again, this is just a new like concurrent series, just kind of like I'm calling it like blank paper. We're all here together, and I'm just going to be available to whoever wants to chat and or talk to, whatever comes to me. I'm really grateful for everyone that stopped in or who watches, and feedback about what's helpful is super helpful to me. Oh my God, help me know I'm relevant or if I'm not relevant. All right. I will also say that I work with people one-to-one. I'm also interested in groups, but mostly I've worked with people one-to-one to help them identify the loops, kind of like the feedback systems that are influencing what they're creating. And mostly at this point, I work with those loops at a belief level. What do you believe to be true? What do you, and then what are the actions that come with that? And kind of tweaking those to start to generate new results. But as it pertains to the body, like I started working out when I was like 11. and have refined and moved through all the things you're not supposed to do. I did it all. I did a lot of it to kind of come to this place of simplicity and naturalness and really just love and allowing and acceptance and letting you be like, letting you be you, letting you be here as you. Because like, here is where it's at. Again, this is where you're trying to go. And the more you become comfortable with your body, the easier it is for you to be present in it. And I think with the way that we have the system set up, again, with the experts for you, the authorities of your body on the outside, it can be really hard to kind of relax into your experience because you don't know if it's going to get you or sneak up on you or like what's happening in here. And those are certainly, of course, there's always question marks, but at the same time, you can develop a familiarity with your physical experience just like you would with anything else you take care of. And it is pretty simple when you get in there because there's so much intelligence built into this already. Think of what it does. What is it doing right now while you're there? Oh my God, it's doing a jillion things, and it's coordinating all of the different things it's doing. When I picked up my hand, I made this little swirly motion. Did I think like contract bicep, engage dorsal, whatever this one's called. What's this one called? Latimus dorsi. Like, no, I just had, it's so smart. It's so smart. And it's doing that while I'm digesting coffee. It's doing that while it's regulating my hormones. Like, so much is happening. And there's a relationship that you can develop with it where you're not kind of like in a black box around it. It can be a little bit more like, and that miracleness of like, whoa, so many things are happening. That's true for everything. But sometimes we have more words, places, and we think like, oh, I know what's going on. I know how I'm controlling this. No, there's a lot. There's a lot we don't know. And yet you can still start to intentionally interact with systems to drive different results and have different experiences. And the mind is really the leader there, but the body plays a big role, as far as I can tell. All right. Well, thank you, everybody who came out. I really appreciate you being here. I will be out most mornings for one series or another. Okay, love you. Bye.